Well, hello, my dear friends. Justyn Smith here, and I want to thank you so much for listening to today's broadcast. As we jump into today's broadcast, the title is Learn from Your Mistakes, 2 Samuel chapter 6. And obviously, we're not able to deal with the entirety of the chapter, but it really is a phenomenal truth that we learn today that just like David learned from his mistakes, you and I can do the exact same thing. So let's be challenged and changed today. My name is Justyn Smith with the Heart for Revival Ministries. heartforrevival.com is our website, and we would absolutely love it if you'd take some time to visit us online and find out more about the work of the ministry there, and specifically pray for the upcoming meetings, for safety as we travel, for God's power to save souls as well as revive the saints. Today's topic and title, Learn from Your Mistakes, 2 Samuel 6. I don't know if you've been there before, but I have definitely been there before where I have made a mistake. And as that mistake has been made, I would say, man, I made a mistake. Now I've got a choice to either right my wrongs, get up and move from here in the right way, or just to sulk and to mope and to move in the wrong way. I want you to be challenged through the life of David today that when you make a mistake, it's not the end. You can rise up and choose right from there and make things correct. As we jump into the scriptures, let's give the first point. First, David has great desires in this chapter, but he didn't go about it God's way. David has great desires, but he didn't go about it God's way. Now, have you ever had a desire to do something great for God? That was David in these verses, and I have several verses to read. Let's read each of those verses, and then we'll explain a little bit about what's going on. David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. Now, why would he do that? Verse 2, David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal of Judah to bring up thence the ark of God, whose name is called by the name of the Lord of hosts that dwelleth between the cherubims. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of Amminadab that was in Geba, and Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Amminadab, drave the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Amminadab, which was at Geba, accompanying the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and psalteries, and on timbrels, and on cornets, and on cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took a hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him therefore for his error. And there he died by the ark of God. And David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah, and he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah unto this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day and said, how shall the ark of the Lord come to me? Now, as we read each of those verses, we have to again give account for the first point that we had, which was David had great desires. David had great desires. Man, he was wanting to do something for the glory of God. I want to bring back the ark, but he went about it the wrong way. You see, in this passage, he builds a new cart. And as he builds a new cart, the ark is sitting on top of it. We are transporting this article of our faith. We are bringing it back to town. And as we're going to go get it, we're going to build a new cart because it deserves the best. And as they set the Ark of the Covenant on top of the ark, they then were transporting it. And when the ground got a little bit shaky and things began going like this, Uzzah took his hand, then he holds the ark. He causes it to not fall off the ark or off the cart. He causes the ark to stay where it needs to be. The Ark of the Covenant. I mean, this Ark is holding precious goods of the faith. It's got the jar of manna, we suppose, is still in there. Aaron's rod that budded, we suppose, it's still in there. And the Ten Commandments. Those are the three things that were within the Ark. The cherubims that had their wings touching each other, that was the place where the blood was put on top of the covering of the Ark. And that is where, once a year at the time of Passover, the lamb's blood would be placed because of the sins of the people by the holiest of priests, the high priest, and by the command of God. And so this particular ark is very, very precious. And, Uzzah is just being honest, and he's just being helpful, and why would God kill him? Because things weren't done the way that God wanted them to be done. And God has to honor the way that God established, because He is perfect, He is right, and He is just. And it's a picture of the law that is against man. That when man does that which is not right in the eyes of God, there is judgment because of what he has done. And it all begins with David's decision to build this new cart, when God said in the first place, you wouldn't have had this problem if you would have done what I told you to do, which was take the staves, those long pieces of wood and that were covered, and you're supposed to put it through the latches, through the holes on the ark, and put those things through. And then the Levitical priesthood, those who were part of the command correctly, would take and lift up and pick up on their shoulders and bear the Ark of the Covenant. That's the way God established it to be done. But no, we're going to build a new cart. It's going to be better. And as we build the new cart, we won't have to carry it. We'll use oxen. But that's not how God established this thing to be. He established it to be carried only by the Levitical priesthood with those rods that were through those latchets on the ark. That's the way God designed it to be. That's the way it was to be done. God is a God who does things decently and in order. And when God says something, He means business. Now, we are thankful that God is a God of mercy, and God is a God of forgiveness, and God is a God of grace. This peace should not have been ditched, okay? David was scared now. Instead of handling things appropriately at this moment, he has to learn a lesson the hard way. So here's what happens. Number 2, Obed-Edom was blessed because of the ark. When David's like, you know what, how shall the ark of the Lord come to me? I'm just going to leave it here. We read these verses to understand in verse 10 through 11. So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David, but David carried it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite, and the ark of the Lord continued in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. Notice this, the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his house. Okay, David's like, could you imagine this? I mean, when I read this, I kind of get this picture, okay? I get that, David's like, how is the ark going to come to me? I mean, look at what happened to Uzzah. I mean, he was just trying, okay, here's what we're going to do. Obed-Edom, we're going to take the ark and give it to you. I mean, look at this death and destruction is kind of how I picture it. Look at all this. It's never going to come home to me. I'm just going to give it to you, And so he takes the ark and he places it over there. But when he does it, that ark is just by God showing David that you still need this sacred instrument. You still need to go get it, but you need to go get it the right way as God begins to bless the household of Obed-Edom. In fact, I have some other verses I want to put before your attention from 2 Chronicles. And we see how God further blessed Obed-Edom, recorded for us in 1 Chronicles. And so I want to give you a few of those verses to let you know how God specifically blessed the household of Obed-Edom. It says in 1 Chronicles 26:4, moreover, the sons of Obed-Edom were Shemaiah the firstborn, Jehozabad the second, Joah the third, and Sakar the fourth, and Nethaniel the fifth. In verse 5, Amiel the sixth, Issachar the seventh, Peluah the eighth, for God blessed him. Notice that phrase, for God blessed him. Also unto Shemaiah his son were sons born that ruled throughout the household. Notice this, they ruled throughout the household of their father, for they were mighty men of valor. That's another statement of how God blessed them because of the ark. And the sons of Shemaiah, Othni, and Rephael, and Obed, and Elzabad were brethren, whose brethren were strong men, Elihu and Semachiah. All these are the sons of Obed-Edom, they and their sons and their brethren, able men for the strength of the service, were 62 of Obed-Edom. Man, that's a lot of blessing. That's a lot of names right there that are very hard to say, and I know I got a couple of them very wrong. But anyways, as you consider those verses, it just lays out for you how God blessed the household of Obed-Edom with might, able men. They were strong for the service of God. God had his blessing on the household of Obed-Edom. And I don't know, again, I don't know why David chose Obed-Edom. I don't know if it was just because it was the closest house, but even still, why? Why would you put it there? But then at the same point, God shows David, I'm going to bless Obed-Edom because the ark is there, noting God's special blessing that is on this particular piece. And in that era, it was something that they should have been caring for. And that's the whole reason why David was wanting to go get it in the first place, because it was the ark of God. We need to bring it back. It needs to be part of our worship. But then notice number 3, David heard of God's blessings and learned from his mistakes. And this is really the point of the message. This is why we come to what we've come to in our study today, because we want to learn from our mistakes like David did, and we want to move forward appropriately. So notice 2 Samuel 6, verse 12 through 15. It was told King David, saying, The Lord hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that pertaineth unto him because of the ark of God. That's why God blessed him. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the household of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness. And it was so that when they that bare the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed oxen and fatlings. So you notice right there, it's not a new cart now. They're bearing the ark of the Lord. They that bear the ark. When they went 6 paces, David offered sacrifice. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet, this article of blessing, this instrument of blessing, this piece to the holiest of holies in the temple. David's bringing it up, and he's doing so. Okay, so get this. When he hears word of what God has done for Obed-Edom, David gets excited. I can bring this back, but I'm going to bring it back the correct way this time. I'm not going to build a new cart again. I'm not going to set it on a cart again. I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm going to have them that bear it. It's going to be something that we do according to the word of the Lord. Now, here's what I don't know. I don't know how David understood the command before he built the new ark. I mean, maybe he built the new cart. Maybe he had, just this great desire and just didn't know, or maybe he misunderstood. I don't know. And I'm not just trying to give David the benefit of the doubt. Maybe David knew, and maybe David thought, this is a better way. I'm going to build something new for the ark because the ark needs it, It's just, let's do it a different way. I don't know how David handled it, but David learned how God wanted it to be done. And when David learned how God wanted it to be done, he didn't say, well, that's a pathetic way of doing it. Now, don't you know that our men are going to be tired from carrying the ark that far? David didn't respond like that. However it was and why it was that he handled it the first way he did, he totally understood God's way now because of the judgment that fell on Uzzah when he touched the ark. And he's like, I don't want that to happen again. And when he learned of the blessing that happened to Obed-Edom, and when he learned how to properly handle the ark, he decided it's time to bring that thing back home. Then we also are further understanding of David's knowledge of how things were to be done by looking at 1 Corinthians 15. And David made him houses in the city of David and prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched for it a tent. Then David said, none ought to carry the ark of God but the Levites, for them hath the Lord chosen to carry the ark of God and to minister unto him forever. And David gathered all Israel together to Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the Lord unto his place for which he had prepared for it. And David assembled the children of Aaron and the Levites, the sons of Kohath, and then it begins to list several different types of people. We'll go through a couple of verses there for time's sake. And then we'll pick up with verse number 11. And David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priest, and for the Levites, for Uriel and Asaiah and Joel and Shemaiah and Eliel and Aminadab, and said unto them, Ye are the chief of the fathers of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, both ye and your brethren, that ye may bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel unto the place that I have prepared for it. For because ye did it not at the first, the Lord our God made a breach upon us, for that we sought him not after the due order. So the priest and the Levites sanctified themselves to bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel, and the children of the Levites bear the ark of God upon their shoulders with the staves thereon, as Moses commanded according to the word of the Lord. And so 1 Chronicles 15 gives us a greater understanding into the situation than what we see in 2 Samuel 6. There is this recognizing of the fact that the first time we didn't do it right, and therefore we had a breach upon us. We sought not the Lord after his order, is what David said. And so this time they did it right. They sanctified themselves, they carried the ark the way that God commanded, and therefore they did things the way that they were supposed to. And get this, they learned from their mistakes. They did not back away. They went and approached the situation. They made things right, and they brought the ark to where it needed to be and where David desired it to be. But they did it the right way this time. And so as we give all of that story, there's lots of different applications, really. But today we focus on this. As David made a mistake, he didn't throw in the towel and give up on life. He understood where his mistake was made, and eventually he made it right and did things the way that God wanted him to do. They erred. They faced the repercussions for their error. Uzzah specifically erred by reaching forth, and God said, because of your error, took his life. And we must understand that God is a just judge and God can do whatsoever he chooses, and we commit to him and submit to him. But this is a story that reminds us the way of the Lord is right, the way of the Lord is pure, and what God has established, it is and it shall be. And aren't we thankful that we live in the day of grace when we are not under the law and we can be rescued by the power of reconciliation and justification, and therefore ultimately one of these days face glorification. Lots of big fancy words there. But anyways, the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ sets us free from the bondage of the law and the judgment thereof, and now we get to live in the freedom that is found in Jesus Christ. And when it comes down to daily mistakes that we make, let's be reminded we can rise up and we can move on and we can live for the glory of God. Thank you for listening to today's broadcast. I hope this has been a help to you, and I hope that you make it a point to be with us on our next broadcast. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.